Hey guys, what's going on? This is Brad from the Ad Army, and today, as you can tell, this is going to be another local hero. I don't know why I almost blanked, almost said off the cuff, but yeah, no, it's going to be another local hero. Right before the format changes, I wanted to give it one more shot with Runick Chimera. I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to play next format. If I do a lot, I think I might actually play Tempai, but I don't think people want to probably see it because it's going to be boring. But I might play Tempai because I have most of the cards. But pretty much, yeah. I'm here, gonna do it again. Try to run it back one more time before obviously the format starts or changes on Thursday technically, but Friday. So I'm just gonna have a good time. Hope everyone's doing well, and I'm just gonna see what I can do. Well, I'm trying to make sure I know how to play the deck extremely well, so I can say I've kind of mastered it. I'm getting close. I think I've got the Chimera part for the most part down. I just need to get that Runick part down. And I do have a tech in the main deck that I'm trying out, so hopefully it'll work. So we'll see you in, obviously, the breakdowns. So round one starts off, and I end up playing against Branded. I played against it enough when my friends used to play it. Luckily, he never played the Puppet Lock. He would only play, because he had Expulsion, he played the Raw's Disciple Lock, which wasn't as bad, because you could just find a way to get rid of it. But the Puppet Lock is worse. You get it on your build, you're basically screwed. So in my case, I get Puppet Locked, and you're probably wondering, oh, it was probably a scoop. Actually, it was not. Thanks to playing Runick Chimera, there's a few things you can do. Thankfully, the main thing you can do is that the Runick cards don't care about Gimmick Puppet. You can play around it basically just by using the Runick's first effects. So that's basically what I do. I start trying to pick apart the field, banish the top cards of the deck, trying to whittle it down just enough to see what I can do. I also have Chimera Fusion, so it'll allow me to play on my opponent's turn when the lock is ending. So there's that as an advantage. There's also the fact that, believe it or not, because of the deck I'm playing, Gimmick Puppet Nightmare becomes a material for Guardian Chimera, and since it is, funny enough, a fiend, it does have some applications to some of my fusions. So, believe it or not, I'm not out of the gate with it on the field. I just have to make a turn and make sure I draw stuff. If I drew only monsters, I lose. But luckily, my opponent does their combo, gets the Gimmick Puppet Lock on field, and they're thinking that that's pretty much going to be it, but I'm actually able to play through it on my first turn. Luckily enough, I am able to draw into two of my Runick cards. I have Chimera Fusion, and I have Codal in my hand with Baphomet, so I'm actually not in that bad of a spot. So the first thing I decided to do is bait to see if they have any hand traps at all. So I go ahead and use Codal's effect. I add Gazelle to my hand because at this point it's the best option I have, and I do have a setup basically because I drew Codal with Baphomet in my hand that I will have a target when I Fusion Summon. So it's not a lost cause. As well as being able to start whittling my opponent's deck a bit. There might be some cards they want, and I can hit a few, and it also gives me disruption with my Runick cards. I'm not out of the woods. I'm out of the woods, but I'm able to play. So we're getting started on his turn. He's assuming that this is it, so he's setting up for an OTK, but then I fire off the Chimera Fusion. He has no negate, obviously, and I'm able to bring out my Baphomet, the King of Mythical Beasts, because it's going to be useful here. And basically, I go ahead and put Gazelle and the Baphomet from my hand into the grave for the fusion, and basically, I go for the standard lineup. I go for like Chainlink 1, 2, and 3. And effectively, this is actually pretty solid. I can get Codal back out of the grave. With Baphomet, I'm going to be able to send another illusion or any Beast Fiend from my deck to the grave. And then also with Gazelle, I'm able to add an illusion to my hand. So I'm able to do a lot of good things. So I end up doing a play that I've always wanted to do. So one of the techs I'm playing, as you can see, is Vor Burial, the Dragon Underworld Taker. This card is really interesting. It's not necessarily super broken, but it is a interesting tool Illusion can use. And it's very cheap. It's technically a hand trap. Really, what's good about playing it in Runick Chimera is that you're able to summon it off of cards like Tau and Baphomet, so it does give you a disruption, and luckily, it doesn't matter if you put it in defense. It can't be destroyed by battle because it's an illusion. So it does help out here as a card I send, because I just get out of my deck, because if I don't see it in my hand, sending it's the best thing, because you will be able to use it with Tau. So basically, I go ahead and add the Tau, do the simple plays, bring back the Codal, because interestingly enough, Codal is going to be the illusion I have engraved for the Baphomet, and I'm able to send the Vorburial. He has no interruptions at this point for me, so he's just letting me do what I need to do, and I kind of set up at least a interesting line there. It's not the best, obviously, but I'm able to at least have the Codal, which will allow me to survive, as that's effectively what's going to happen. He's going to go to battle phase, purposely killing my or killing the Gimmick Puppet, which I was going to find out was going to be really important in a minute, and killing Baphomet, which I'm like, okay, whatever. And, I survived luckily because of Kodal. Kodal saves me. He does go into Mirror Jade to banish my Kodal, which makes me laugh because I'm like, seeing a Kodal banished by a Mirror Jade is funny because laughably it's like that you had to actually get rid of it that way. But it's okay. It doesn't bother me. But I end up learning in a really tough way in the next turn. So his turn ends, and I'm like, okay, I could start doing some plays. I draw, and I forget the Albion is still on the field. So guess what? I get puppeted again. So this is the second time I get hit with Gimmick Puppet, and I'm just like, oh. I, funny enough, draw into the Super Poly, but as you know, you can't Super Poly Albion, so at that point, I didn't even bother firing it off. I technically had targets, but it wasn't worth it. At this point, I'm trying to figure out what I can do. So I have an idea, and I'm just kind of have to stick with it with Super Poly and my other Runick card I have and just kind of go for it, right? I am playing Imperm, but I keep it in my hand in case I get board wiped, just on the off chance. Luckily, this game basically ends with me getting Gimmick Puppet 3 times. I do fight the board back. I even get to Super Poly his board for a play that I used to do a lot, which is you Super Poly the Dark Monsters on purpose if you're playing as Branded, targeting their Mirror Jade, because you know they will activate that effect to destroy cards, but you make Starving Venom on purpose so that once that effect in the end phase goes and they pop Starving Venom in revenge pops all of their monsters as well that are special summoned, so it's a pretty neat play. Unfortunately, we're playing as Branded and they have Branded opening. Yeah, they're going to protect it, but it's worth baiting it out, which is what happens. So it's okay. We go to game 2, and interestingly enough, it's a back and forth, but more of the same stuff. I end up getting Gimmick Puppet locked again, and this time it's just too much, but it's not because I wasn't able to play through it. It's more of he drew a far better hand. He actually gets access to Branded Loss, so I can't even react to a lot of his plays, which is just horrible, and at this point, I kind of just scoop it up. My cards I sided in didn't help, and as you can probably tell now, I'm going to talk about it in the match 2, because technically I had to buy, so I can talk about some stuff. I'm not actually playing like board breakers or anything. I'm not even playing hand traps really, except for Imperm. So I'll actually just talk about it in obviously the buy, because I actually learned a lot and watched a lot. And it'll probably be just a little breakdown quick. But yeah, pretty much game 1 ends. I lose to Branded, and the puppet lock, it attacks me. But it's not like I'm gonna run into it again or anything, right? Okay, so technically I get the buy for round 2, so I'm not mad. I'm like, I get a free win, and I get to sit down a bit because I'm like, that match game was kind of, whatever, but it was okay. Not mad. My opponent didn't do anything bad, so, they just played really well, and their deck was good. So in the buy, I'm kind of just watching some games, but also thinking about my stuff, so I'll talk about my decks really quick. So as you could tell in my sideboard that I'm talking about now, I'm actually playing copies, or I'm playing the Tempai engine, a small one. I don't have 3 Pydras, I only have 1. So I had 1 Pydra, 2 Fadra, the 3 Chandra, 3 Sangen Summoning, and the 3 Sangen Kaiman. I'm playing all those cards because effectively as a going second engine, I can sideboard them in by removing the Runick cards, and believe it or not, going second with these cards are absolutely fantastic. A lot of times I can find myself not even needing to utilize my normal summon on any of my Chimera monsters. I could just go ahead and normal summon like Chandra and then go to battle phase and start playing from there. And in my extra deck, it's not an issue either, because I actually play the 2 copies of the Sangenpai Bident Dragion and the Transcendent Dragion at 1. And the reason I do this is that there's no reason to not dedicate side deck space to them, because I play Pot of Prosperity anyways in the main deck, and even when I go to side, I leave it in. So there's no reason to not play it, because if I just choose to get rid of it during the game, it's not an issue. The biggest reason I play 2 copies of the Bident Dragion is that if I take out my Runick cards, I'm usually going, or most of my Runick cards, I do leave in like 2. Usually what I'll do is I will go ahead and banish for 3. I can get rid of 3 of my Runick cards, because that's what I've cut my engine down to in the main deck, or my extra deck. So I cut it down to 3 Runick extra deck monsters, and then if I do 6, I'll usually do 3 of those, 2 of my Super Poly targets, and then the 1 of the Bident Dragion, because there's usually never a time where I think I'm going to use a second one. So getting rid of one of the Bidents is fine, and I can just reveal 6. So I've done that before, and it's not hurt me. I play Super Poly too, so that's kind of the key thing why it's good, because if you have multiple targets, you just kind of banish away the targets you don't think you'll utilize, or they're not going to help you in the game state, so it works. Or even I play multiple copies of Baphomet, so I get rid of one of those if I don't need it, because I technically can just use it or Chimera. They kind of work both ways. But yeah, that's basically why I have that engine. I still haven't utilized it fully just because usually my Chimera engine can do so much. But the secondary Tempai engine is really good because my opponents don't see it coming because it's basically just a one card engine if you have the Sangen Kaiman. And when I talk about my third round match, it did come up, which is funny. But pretty much I'm doing that, so it's fun. And yeah, I'm not complaining. I like it as a tech engine. You know, it's cheap for the most part. Tempai isn't that expensive. If they hit it, it is what it is. But the point is, if you're looking for a deck that you want to try or even sideboard, Tempai might be an engine if you can dedicate some space because the cards are just very consistent. And if you can even just get Sangen Kaiman to your hand and you just play like a Chandra and a Fadra, you're pretty much doing full combo. You don't even need to play Pydra. But that's coming from me, not saying for you to do that. If you want to play full Tempai or like a better engine, obviously play 3 Pydra. Don't listen to what I'm saying about that. Play 3. It's like the most important card you will need to search. But I'm saying if you just want to play like a cheaper engine budget that works well, there's nothing wrong with going for Chandra and just playing the Chandra, the Fadra, and the 3 Kaiman because it will come up. So that's what I'll say. And then in my watching matches, I get to see Branded versus, let's see, it was Branded versus Heroes. I know the hero player, he plays really good, and he actually showed me a few things that I want to like incorporate to Heroes in the future when I play it again. There was also Ninja versus Snake Eyes, which was hilarious. I only got to watch a little bit of it because I was too busy watching the other matchup, which was Branded versus Yubel. And this is obviously before we get into Infinite Forbidden, so, you know, no Fiend Smiths, but it was interesting to watch both. I don't know a ton about the Yubel matchup. I mean, I have the cards and read them, but I don't know how it really works against Branded, because Branded, if they are playing Super Poly for whatever reason, they have a way to beat the deck. But I know for a fact that Branded does struggle somewhat, because if you just go for the Yubel monsters and the Nightmare Pain, you're able to just run into their monsters and kind of just kill them that way, like make a simple board state. But Phantom Yubel is also really, really good, so that's an interesting card to see. Funny enough, the Ninja player, from what I was watching, was doing actually pretty well. The Book of Mooning from a lot of cards really does hurt Snake Eye because they really want to have some face-up monsters. Like, one thing that was hilarious is that the Flame Bridge got linked off. I heard this. He summoned back both monsters, and he was going to go make a link play, but then because the Ninja player chained one of his cards to book a monster face down, he actually just books the other Snake Eye monster face down, and this ruined the play. I think he probably hit the Oak or something, because the guy was like, oh, now I can't even summon back Flame Bridge or something, and then he was actually able to, like, do pretty well. He did end up losing the match from what I heard, but I didn't get to watch all of it because I was too busy looking at the other matches, but it was interesting to hear about that. Funny enough, I heard the puppet lock going off multiple times on both of the different tables, which I was thinking, please don't let me play Branded again. That was the one thing I didn't want, but yeah, what are the chances I'm going to run into it again, right? But the hero player ended up taking the match in game 3 against the Branded player I played against, which was not surprising because he's really good with the deck. And then, yeah, the Yubel player ends up losing to the other Branded player, which doesn't, I wouldn't say doesn't surprise me. It was more of just like, oh, I didn't know that was going to happen. So it happens. And then, but they end up having a tie, because I thought originally, because they said, oh, you get the game, I thought they had lost the match. But actually, that player had lost just that one game. So they ended up in game 3, but there was no time left, so it was a tie. And pretty much I'm going into round 3 thinking, okay, who am I going to play? I don't care, but I don't want to play Branded again. And yeah, I end up playing Branded again. I'm not mad. I played my opponent. He was the same player who was playing a Voiceless Voice before, and I'm just like, okay. It's not a big deal. Have a good time. He played it really well. It was a really good match. So I'll explain how this goes. So game 1 is interesting. I think for the first a little bit, I'm nervous, but I draw a very good hand, and I'm not as nervous because I'm pretty sure I can do something. So I end up doing my normal plays with Runick combos. If I remember correctly, I'm able to beat this board because I had a lot of decent interaction. I just had to deal with a few monsters to kind of take over the board. My opponent just normal plays. I don't really think I have any hand traps at this point, if I remember correctly, because I just remember letting him finish his board. It wasn't bad. I gave it the puppet lock again for the, and then this was probably the 6th or 7th time in this tournament. Yeah, that's weird, right? But yeah, I get hit with Puppet again, and this doesn't end the game. Like I said, luckily my deck doesn't lose immediately, so I'm just kind of happy, actually, because him doing that basically limits what I can do, but also I don't need to do it because I'm using the Runick card, so I'm like, I don't care. And it's kind of funny because I use like tip and stuff like that to start picking apart the board. I grab freezing curses, stuff like that. So I'm like, okay, I know for a fact that I can start picking apart his board. I can't attack him yet, but that's not what I need to do. Because like that's the best thing about, I think, Runick, is that for whatever reason, usually when you have a game plan, the first thing you think is, can I kill the board? And I can't, whatever. Like, there's not a lot of alternate win conditions, and you're not playing in time, right? So I'm not trying to burn him. So it's like, well, what can I do? And I'm like, in theory, messing with his deck does help, because in a deck like Branded, it doesn't matter as much. But if you're able to really whittle down some of the options they might need, because they will go into their deck a lot, you can take advantage of that. So that is what kind of happens, but he doesn't really lose anything. It's just more, it becomes annoying for him to change up his plays. I can see that some of his cards he's looking and he's like, oh, that's already banished. So, we do it that way. Luckily, I am able to stave off like dying on the next turn, because he is able to try to make a big push, but luckily I am able to survive. If I remember correctly, I end up going for a Chimera play, which is kind of hilarious because it does work out for me. Because when you go for Guardian Chimera to pop cards, this time it was really good because I use one of the materials, obviously being the puppet, so it's like I don't lose a card economy, but I'm able to send cards from my hand. So I think it was like Sword Knight, and I believe it was also like Gazelle in this situation, because I remember adding Vorbur. No, I ended up adding Tau to my hand, and then thanks to sending Sword Knight, I was like, okay, I have a play, because I have another Runick card set, so it's going to come up for what's about to happen, which is really, really good. So I end up doing that, grabbing the Tau, because I'm going to need it, and then effectively the Guardian Chimera lets me draw 2, and I pop 1 card. So if I remember correctly, I got rid of one of the fusion monsters, because I knew if I could just stave off being attacked, even if I just passed the next turn, it would be helpful. And yeah, because I can't get rid of Albion, because you can't destroy it, but yeah, you just kind of deal with the rest of the board. So I end up doing that. And, obviously it's his turn, so he starts doing plays, he gets a Mirror Jade out, and I know the Mirror Jade's going to go after the Chimera. And at that point, it didn't bother me, because it was either he was going to summon that, or he was going to use Albaz to get rid of it for Mirror Jade. So that's exactly what happened. So I was kind of telegraphing his plays, which is fine. That ends up allowing me to do what I wanted, so I fire off a Runick quick play, and I go for pitching the Tau in my hand in order to grab the fountain, but that wasn't exactly what I needed. I was doing it for. Like, I didn't care about the fountain. I needed the Tau engraved. Since Tau was sent to the graveyard, I used its effect to target the Sword Knight and bring it back, which is exactly what I wanted. It's what I need to do, because I know he's going to try to puppet lock me again. If he doesn't, it's weird, but if he does, that's exactly what he would do. So I'm like, I need to get as much advantage as possible out as quickly as possible. So, that ends up happening. And also, Sword Knight will save me, because since I know he wants to banish other cards, he has to think about what I had. So he does end up banishing my Hugin, which kind of surprised me. It's just because Hugin's not bad, but most people won't I mean, I would assume most people wouldn't banish it because they just attack over it. But yeah, he banishes it, and then the situation happens again where he attacks my field, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm safe, because Sword Knight's the only thing on my field, and it can't go anywhere. So happy. I end up going into the next turn, and I obviously start setting up a bit, because I'm like, okay, he's gonna give me the puppet again. So I had a way to counter the board. And funny enough, I was going to do it again, because I did it in my original match, which is actually Super Poly into Starving Venom. So I do that same play again on the next turn. So I get with Puppet. I'm like, okay. He sets up his board. He has nothing to fusion summon, so he summons back Cartesia, I believe. And then that's when we go into his turn, or I go into my battle phase, and I just say skip it, obviously, because I can't attack. Go into his next turn, and then he thinks he's probably going to be able to clear my board. But before he can even get off the Mirror Jade, I fire the Super Poly, get the Mirror Jade off the field with one of his monsters, and then I know in the end phase, because basically I waited till he had kind of zapped out his plays, and then that's exactly what I wanted. He goes for the effect, and I'm like, okay, cool. Effect of Starry Venom, because it's going to destroy all your cards, and then he uses Branded Opening to protect them, but that's what I wanted. I wanted a monster left on field, so he does leave a monster on field. And then pretty much I'm able to get started on my next turn, because even though I lost like my board advantage, he doesn't have the puppet to summon back to my field. So funny enough, the puppet's just staying there, which was hilarious. And I start my plays. So at this point, I've gained enough advantage to start. I go ahead and normal summon another Sword Knight, use its effect, go for Baphomet. I go for a full combo here. So I go into Baphomet, the King of the Mythical Beasts this time, dumping, I forgot what, probably any monster to give me a negation. And then this time I just go for it. So I go for the Chimera Fusion from my hand, and I use, I think, two extra materials. And then this is exactly what I wanted, so I can start attacking for game, because I have Sword Knight brought back, so I bring it back, and then it's basically game, because I go for the effect, I attack, I drop it to 0, and then he sees the writing on the wall, because I attack, and then I'm able to attack again. So basically, and it sucked too, because I did have 2 Runick cards in my hand. I really wanted to use them, but I opted not to, because, like I said, another thing about Runick against branded is that milling them out isn't necessarily impossible. It's just a lot more difficult. And if I was already low on life points to an extent, because although I wasn't losing a bunch of life points, he was able to kill some of my fusions periodically, so I didn't mention that, but yeah, basically kills them periodically, and I'm taking damage from that, so it wasn't fun. Game 2 happens. I side in the Tenpai engine, because I know for a fact he's probably going to side in to beat the Runick cards, and he did that, actually. I saw some cards he brought in, and I was like, oh, good, I didn't bring it. He had Feather Duster and stuff like that, and I was like, okay. And honestly, Feather Duster's my actual board, and it doesn't hurt. Like, it's kind of funny, because he hits it, and I'm like, okay. So, luckily enough, here's a play for you guys who have never played Chimera to do. If you have Chimera Fusion in your hand, and you have any other way to get into another Chimera Fusion, always have 1 to 2 in your hand if you're playing 3, and if you're only playing 2, make sure you always keep 1 in your hand, because this is the best way to keep the advantage going with this deck, is because if you lose access to Chimera Fusion, your cards don't do much, but more importantly, you don't have a reliable way to get like discard fodder, which is what Chimera Fusion can do in the Runick version, because you just pitch it for your Runick cards, like to search for field spells with Yugioh, and you just recur it back while you have a Chimera, the king of the mythical beasts, right? So you keep that resource loop going. It really does help. And in this case, it does help me, because he blows it up, all my back row up, and to me, it didn't really matter, because I was like, okay, whatever. And I'm able to kind of hold off. Like I said, the Gimmick Puppet Lock in game 2 hurt more, but because my Chimera engine was getting the job started, but it wasn't enough to get the job done, is the best way to put it. So I'm doing enough damage. In this match, I think he makes a few adjustments. So he makes Quertus first, which is smart, because if you're playing against Super Poly decks, and you know the opponent has Super Poly, you should need to start utilizing more of your options, because sometimes there's just not enough Super Poly targets to fit it. So unless someone's specifically playing like Mirror Jade in their extra deck, there's no way that they could deal with some of your boards like without like targeting the Fallen Valbaz and stuff like that. So it does help out a lot against those matchups, which is what happens to me here. He's able to start making some of his other fusions that really do kind of unsynergize with my Super Poly targets, and that's able to like kind of hold me back for a while. But it also doesn't allow him to advance his play, because, you know, funny enough, like I said, the illusion monsters are just like pains in the butt for a lot of decks that don't deal with, they only focus on like maximizing damage when they try to win a game, because if they can't be destroyed, the monsters, or they can't destroy in battle in any way, the monsters are just becoming butts. Like they basically just say you can't. And it does make the battle phase a little bit more important, because it is basically telling your opponent if you can't deal with them, you're screwed. But, you know, it's not the end of the world, and my opponent is able to play through this. Funny enough, like I said, the Zangan Kaiman almost saves me towards my last turn, because I know if I summon the Fadra says Fire Dragon monsters you control can't be destroyed by battle, so I'm forced to do that. But my opponent is able to go ahead and make, or had a Mirror Jade on field, and I was seeing if he wasn't going to use the effect, because I had the puppet he gave me on field. Like I said, this is his turn attacking, so the lock is over. And I was like, okay, if he doesn't, or if he tries to banish, because I was hoping he would banish the puppet, but he went straight to it. He wanted to go straight to attacking it, so I was like, okay, I have no choice here, have to do it. He gets rid of it, and yeah, it's game, it's enough, and I'm not mad. We go into game 3. There's so many minutes left, I think like 3 or 4, when I'm already like midway through combo. I put my Runick cards back in, because I'm thinking, okay, I have 2 ways to win this. I could mill him out, do a little bit of damage, or I could even just try to play into the board and hopefully get back to my turn. Because we get back to my turn, because even if he plays fast, there's no guarantee he can crack my board if I have illusion monsters, which is basically what I do. I get a Kodal, I have a Sword Knight. I basically have what you want, because you put them both in defense on the field. I personally believe it's better to have them on field than in the grave, because if they're on in the graveyard, Bystials can hit Sword Knight, and then for specifically Kodal, people could banish it with other cards. So I just personally like to have them on field, because even if people try to like hit them with hand traps, that's a good trade. And yeah, it's just really good. But in this case, what happens is I get Feather Dusted again, which was like, ugh, like a big pain in the kick in the stomach. But it wasn't enough to let him win, because I could realize, okay, if he pops them, I'm still gonna have access to some resources. So, like I said, the mistake I make is I didn't make Munin on my turn, because I forget to do that. I just don't make it. I should have made Munin on my turn, because I would have won the game. Yeah, it would have been kind of scummy with life points, but it wouldn't have been a time thing on purpose. It just would have been an aspect of, I know time's running low, so I'd rather give myself more life points. And that was kind of the key thing, because he only had one monster he could realistically run over in attack position, and that would be my Chimera, the King of Mythical Beasts, which I left in attack position. Don't do that. Don't be a dummy. But the point is, I shouldn't have done that. If I had not done that, and I just made the Munin on my turn, I would have won. Because we end up in a draw, and I'm just like, ugh. Because I summon it, and I'm like, I should just summon this on my turn. Because there's no way he's just going to go to end phase and pass, and I'm like, I'm going to gain 1,000 and win this. But I summon it anyways. Yeah, just little lessons to know. But yeah, we end up losing in a tie. It was a good game. Can't get mad. And that's pretty much it for the tournament. There wasn't really much to talk about. I'll cover the ending segment in a second. But yeah, it was a good time. It was good before the format ended, because I already saw some people have their Fiendsmith cards already. I saw a guy playing Fiendsmith Yubel after the tournament was over, testing it. So I know for a fact that, the dawn of the next age is coming, right? The end of this format's here, and the new one's going to begin. So let's move into the ending segment. This is the closing. Sadly, we did not pull it off. It's okay, though. It happens. Or by what I mean by I didn't pull it off is I ended up going 0-1, and then technically basically 0. I went 0-1, technically 2, but it is what it is. This is more so from the fact that we ended up tying, and I had a tie, and then I had a what was it? I had a draw, or I had a bye, so I went a loss, a bye, and a draw. So, nothing. Although technically, when I got the bye, it means I won. So I got a pack for prizing. It wasn't anything good, but the whole point is, it was cool. I'm not mad. This is the last logos I'll be going to for the format, at least for now. So when the format changes by the end of the week, that'll be that. Did I feel really good playing Runick Chimera? I felt extremely good. I think I made some issue plays, but nothing that was going to ruin my day. It was more of me playing through really nasty boards. Playing branded twice was not fun, but the first game, obviously, I can't get mad. That was fine. The second game, or the bye, was cool because I got to watch other players. So I had to see Yubel. I saw Snake Eyes versus Ninja, so that was weird. I saw Branded versus Yubel, and then I saw Branded versus Heroes. Honestly, it was cool. I wish I could have done better. After the bye, I really wanted to take that last game, but it just wasn't in my favor. Although I could have won, but I just didn't have enough time. Had my opponent not been able to attack me, because I probably would have still survived, because at that point he wasn't going to be able to put up enough damage, and he knew that. So pretty much he had to attack me, do some damage, and I think he just didn't have the gas for it, because his hand wasn't as good as it could have been. But it is what it is. Like I said, I'm just happy I was able to play. I had a decent time. I'll be back to this locals again at some point soon. It's going to take some time probably to redo my next deck, because I am going to be playing a new deck. You will hear about it, and you'll have heard about it in the closing statement. This is just me talking about it now, because I'll end the video here. But basically, I'm going to show you the new deck. I'll talk about it in the end of it, so you'll get a tidbit. And then yeah. So this has been Brad from the Ad Army. This has been Local Hero, and you know what to do, everybody. Remember, because it's really good to help me out by following me here on Rumble. And as always, this is Brad from the Ad Army signing off. And for all of you out there, just sign on.